It's still daybreak, of course, on Trust TV, and definitely, we're now in the discussion segment of the program. The Delivery Tracker app launched for citizens' feedback on government performance is what we'll be talking about today. The Central Delivery Coordination Unit unveiled an app allowing citizens to monitor the ministry's deliverables and assess performance indicators. Aligning with President Tinubu's commitment to transparency and accountability, the app emphasizes citizens' involvement in governance. Now, accessible at app.cdcu.gov.ng, it aims to boost accountability and transparency and also enhance national security, ensure food security, and promote sustainable development. The app will soon be available for downloads on the different App Store platforms across Android and also iOS devices. Now, joining us to discuss the workability of this application and whether Nigerians will be able to use this to track the performance of their ministers, we have in the studio a public policy expert. He is Emmanuel Osemeka. Welcome to the studio, Mr.
It's always a pleasure to have you join us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
So it seems that the federal government is taking a different approach this time to track the activities of, the ministers. I think this is going to be the first time we'll be seeing the government using an app and key performance indicators, for ministers. Now looking like we now have a human resource department, of the federal government.
Oh, a class prefect.
Beside the CDC, or a class monitor, like Mardia has been saying. But I want your assessment of the workability of this. Or is it just a pipe dream?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I think number one is that it's become pretty obvious that the current APC government is an elitist government. Also very unfortunate.
Wow.
It's elitist government in the sense that there is no iota of responsibility towards the very poor, vulnerable, and the non-existent middle class.
And there are 133 million of them.
So, and it's actually much more than that right now, because this was the 133 million multidimensionally poor Nigerians were, as at 2021.
Indeed.
So you had 2022, then 2023 when the government came on board. From the day he came on board, he threw in more people into that poverty line by the unplanned, unprepared, subsidy removal. And this would be that pronouncement would be the 5th time subsidy was removed, because the Buhari administration removed it 4 times. And each time they removed it, they will come back to give us one story or the other. Until today, we still hear that they will still remove subsidy again. So we're at a loss as to what is going on. As if that was not enough, they went ahead to bring up a very, completely misunderstood policy of Naira float. For an economy like Nigeria, you don't float your currency because Nigeria is not trading with Naira in any international sphere. The Chinese currency is an international currency. It's not floated. The Emirates dirham is not floated. It's an international currency. Even the UK, the United Kingdom, they defend their pounds. So they took us on a wild goose chase. Naira went to 1,950 and threw much more people into that poverty. So I'm just trying to explain to you why we are no longer at 133. We're probably at 150 right now or more. I don't have the clear empirical evidence to be able to say the specific number, but I can tell you for free that we are no longer at 133 multidimensional poor people. There are much more. Now, after all that, they now began to walk back on a lot of the policies they've done. So it's pretty unfortunate. And now we're coming up with an app. There's nothing wrong with having a technological driven, assessment or evaluation, mechanism. However, the point is, how many Nigerians today can afford an Android phone to be able to even afford the data to download and go through those KPIs you're talking about? So let's even assume a reasonable number would do. How many of us even understand what KPIs are? the people that you need to critically explain the policies of government and how it affects their life, do you need an app for them?
Of course not.
Where is the National Orientation Agency? That's why I say that it's an elitist government. It has nothing to do with the poor of the society.
So would you say with the launch of this app now, perhaps the government has an idea in its head of what the generality of Nigerians are as opposed to the reality of what they actually are?
I think it's a continuation of weaponization of poverty.
How so?
Because the reality is that, what capitalism does is that it constantly tries to take care of the less than 1% and keep them quiet, while the rest of us continue to shout, mouth. They will tell you, oh, it's democracy at work. It's about majority will have their way, while the minority will have their say. Now, the reverse is actually the case, because the less than 1% is not the majority. That's the reality. I mean, think about it, sir. Nigeria, under this administration, has just begun a coastal road.
Superhighway.
They call it superhighway that will cost 15 trillion.
How much is the budget?
You are going too far. 15 trillion, sir. We have not started emergency on agricultural food production. We've not declared emergency on insecurity. We have not spent 50% of that amount on cultivation and production of agricultural produce, which will give us foreign earnings.
In the short term.
Do you see the misplacement of priority? I'm not saying that the coastal road is not needed. One, is colossally very expensive. We need to, if we have a National Assembly that's functional, they should be able to look at that. I don't even know where that budget came from and how they got that 15 trillion. I don't even understand how you will do a kilometer of road for 4 billion. But that's a different kettle of fish entirely. I'm just trying to let you know and to understand the thinking and the way the government is thinking.
So you're addressing the elitism.
It's elitism.
So having said all of this, what could they have done better?
They couldn't have done anything better. This is what they want to do because they are scared of the Twitter warriors.
So this is them at their best.
Yes, they are scared of the Twitter warriors and the young people who hold the phone. So they want to keep them busy with the KPIs.
So would you suggest that we speak to the government about the plight of the citizens, or report back to the government, or check KPIs using the social media? So
the reality is that you and I may be able to interact with the app. The next question would be, who will be responding to you? Is it the 4 people in a room? Let me use that word. Is it the 4 people in the room? Or is it the ministers?
You have to go there, Mr. Osemeka.
Or is it the ministers and their aides that will respond to us based off of what they are doing in reality? Number 2, do they have a system where the ministers come on national television or radio stations to say, in the next 1 year, this is what we will begin to do? For the Nigerians to know. Or is it that the CDCU came up and said, okay, this is what we're going to be doing?
Well, Mr. Osemeka, I know that in time past, the essence of having regular town hall meetings across the different zones of the country was supposed to cater for some of these things that this app is coming to address. So why are we trying to move the government officials away from the people who actually are affected by some of the policy implementations that these ministers and government officials carry out? For goodness sakes, even the previous administration that some would have considered to be so bad carried out some of these town hall meetings, and we saw Nigerians really contribute and talk about the challenges that they are facing. So if you reduce it to a tracker, an app for tracking KPIs, where do you now, channel complaints to as regards other issues that plague Nigeria as a society and as a country, other than the performance of their ministers?
So the other question, in addition to what you just asked, is who developed the KPI? Were Nigerians part of this performance supposedly
Well,
that were
from
tracking.
what I read, they said it was in collaboration with the ministers, some development partners, the CDCU office, that's the coordination. I really can't remember the full meaning at this point, but I didn't see anywhere where it was mentioned.
So with that alone, has it not clearly shown that I'm 100% correct, that is an elitist government? In the past, you used to have a situation where the national registration agencies will hold, even if it's geopolitical zone, town hall meetings, leaders of thought, market women, blah blah blah. So where's the place of the market women? How will the market women give their feedback?
Okay, do you think that this is actually for the ministers, and that responsibility should be left for state governors to have an interaction with the people?
The state governments cannot speak for the federal government. That's the problem. So you see, I need you to understand where I'm coming from. We have the federal government, the state government, and the local government that does not exist anymore. So let's assume we have the federal government, you have the state government. So the federal government is trying to show that they are working. What I'm saying is, if you want to truly show that you're working, they say that the taste of the food is in the eating, right? So let's say, for example, in the FCT, we have a minister of FCT who holds regular media chats. So that media chat is like a way of telling FCT residents, this is what we're doing. As much as the FCT residents have a lot of complaints and there is no feedback system for now, besides the feedback system that were created by a few civil society or human rights organizations left and right with some phone, what they call toll-free numbers that they put, which at the end of the day, you never really get anything in. But at least you have a minister who sits down and answer questions from reporters or correspondents or journalists. So these journalists are regular people who interact on a daily basis, and most often you will hear the question that is burning your heart. Whether the minister answers the question correctly or wrongly, or even politicizing the question, is a different kettle of fish. But the idea is that, at least, can we have the president hold one media chat for 1 year? None. Buhari didn't hold any. I think it was one or two that I heard that we didn't even understand what Buhari was talking about at the time, because he was completely divorced from the realities of the time. This same government is completely divorced from the realities of the time. That is why a government will come in knowing fully well that they met an empty treasury, and they went on a spending spree for luxury vehicles, luxury this, luxury that. When things now began to run out of their hand, they now realized that, we must buy Nigeria. After you've bought all the SUVs, wasted our dollars and our pounds that we didn't have. That's the reality. For them, they need to start by returning those vehicles. And from National Assembly to the presidency and all that, they need to return those vehicles and start investing in the made in Nigerian vehicles and keep the money here. That's how you attract people, because if people want to come and invest in your country, they want to see what you're doing to show that you really believe in your own country. So let me even give it to him. Let the president drive other vehicles for his own personal safety, but let every other vehicle around him be made in Nigerian vehicle. If you see the president's convoy, what do you see? You see American Ford, you see American GMC, you see Toyota, you see this, you see that. Not one single Nigerian vehicle.
But then again, Mr. Osemeka, if it's good enough for the Nigerian Armed Forces to use made in Nigeria APC armored personnel carriers, then it should be good enough for the president to drive in one.
I agree.
But then again, back to the central coordination and central. I really find it difficult.
I'm still even there.
I find it difficult to say.
Central delivery content.
But then again, we now have an app. Nigerians should be able to participate, and thankfully, you've mentioned that at the end of the day, it might just be an elitist or an elite-driven mechanism for tracking the activities of our ministers and government officials. So where do we now leave those Nigerians who are at the disadvantage, those Nigerians who stay in communities where they barely have broadband internet connectivity? Some of these people are dealing with second generation edge and GPRS networks. They don't even have 3G as it is.
Correct.
So
they are talking about network when we've not gotten the phone to actually do that.
I'm saying that these people make up a majority of the Nigerians that we know.
Yes.
So if these persons are not able to access this application to assess the ministers, do we now say we have, an assessment that is representative of the voice of Nigeria?
So that is exactly why I was talking about, government of elites, because I believe strongly that if the government decides to use the current structure of government, Nigeria does not have a structural problem.
So what do we have?
We have an implementation problem.
Can you elucidate that? Because I really think that the government will...
The civil service of Nigeria is properly structured. The problem is that, so let me use FCT for example. In the FCT, if you take a look at the way FCT was set up with FCDA being the lead agency. Then there are departments in FCDA, so you have a department of planning, you have the plan.
There's a lot of them
design,
actually.
You have the implementation, you have the control, which is development control.
Yes.
But what has happened is that the politicians came. In trying to run away from the master plan, because they actually ran away from the master plan. That's why you have distortions in FCT. They ran away from the master plan. And because the development control is the control arm of the FCDA, who is the implementer, the owner of the master plan. So the politicians came, took development control away from FCDA and put them away from FCDA. So it's under the control of the management. Why? Because when you have the control of the development control, you can tell them to go and demolish your enemy's property.
So it has now become a tool of the government.
So you can also demolish that property and reassign it. It started from every 5 till tomorrow. It has not changed. If we want to, that's why you see that all of a sudden FCT is now very dirty. That's why you see all of a sudden if you put your map, Google map, sometimes the map will take you to a dead end and say it's a road. Because there's supposed to be, there was originally planned, a road was originally planned there. But you now see gigantic structures there. Those are the distortions you have in the master plan. If you go to the office of the development control, you will see a massive, prototype of the FCT master plan. If you take a look at it, my brother, you weep. Take a look at it with what you know today as FCT.
Is it because of the distortion?
The distortion is monumental.
Mr. Osemeka, for the sake of time, I really wish and hope that you are able to answer this question. Are we now on a wild goose chase?
But that's exactly what it is. What has happened is that the government structures were created to be able to, handle, checks, balance, provide answers where necessary, fill up gaps where necessary. And the idea is that the government was supposed to leave just very little gaps. Then the civil society will fill up those little gaps. But today, because of political expediency and political selfishness and all that, and political mercantiling, what has happened is that several and various government agencies that were meant to carry out specific responsibilities have been neglected, e.g. NOA, for example, and several other agencies in different structures of society. So instead of allowing those agencies or funding those agencies to carry out their responsibilities, those agencies have been neglected, and we are reinventing the wheel, creating and recreating agencies. That's what has been going on in Nigeria. So you now look at it, it looks as if the government is not performing. But because government is performing, because for example, NOA is so equipped to the point that NOA will engage in English, in all the languages of Nigeria, and they are in every...
The 774 local
governments.
Well, they say we don't have 774 local governments. We have 774 less 6. FCT does not have local government, they have area council. So you have 774 minus 6, that's
669, 68, thereabouts.
Okay.
So those are the
okay, a quick one, Mr. Osemeka. I know that, some people who live in the rural areas have been disenfranchised
100%.
From using this app. What can we do?
What they need to do is to be able to walk back like the usual. That's how the government started. They can have to continue like that for the next 4 years. Then in 2027, Nigerians will decide if they want to continue in this direction or not. So the point is they need to walk back. They need to engage the NOA, National Orientation Agency, because the job of national registration agencies is for mobilization, mass mobilization. NOA was MAMSA, remember? It's for mass mobilization of citizens. The essence of it, so NOA is supposed to take the government message to the people. So you have town hall meetings going pari passu in all the states of the federation. You engage the local person in their local dialect. They ask you questions as NOA, you answer them. The ones you can't answer, you take it back up. Then you get the feedback and you go and give them. The offices are there. Staff members are there. But what are they doing? Nothing. Why? Because the politicians have taken up their responsibilities. That's why we're coming to app.
What about funding? I think funding is also another challenge.
We have 28 trillion budget. Are you telling me that out of that 28 trillion, you cannot factor NOA in that budget? If there's no budget for them, then do additional budget. And after all, there's plenty money to throw away.
Since we can buy SUVs
exactly, for 167 million for one person. And we don't have roads on the road. We don't have roads. And those SUVs are bought because the roads are not good. I mean, you heard the senator say that the reason why they're buying because it's no road. That man should be stoned.
Okay, so
and he doesn't know his job. Anyway. Oh, interestingly, you just wonder what some of our leaders say when they are on television or when they're being interviewed by our colleagues.
Exactly. That's another issue.
And some people would definitely walk out or probably not grant interviews because they really do not want to, face the truth or face reality as it is. But what can we do? We keep talking about it. We're the fourth estate of the realm, and we keep letting them know that this is the way to go.
Hopefully we'll definitely be opening the phone line subsequently so Nigerians can call in and actually share their thoughts and comments. Mr. Osemeka has spoken so passionately about, how this might just be a wild goose chase. I mean, what stops us from having those one-on-one face-to-face interaction with our leaders to tell them this is what we want? Why do we have it's not social media?
Just like we had face-to-face when they were campaigning.
Exactly. You just took it out of my mouth.
If it's good enough to meet face-to-face,
why not go back?
Why not go back? So
exactly.
We might just be having a government that has a track record of backtracking.
Wow.
like
Mr. Osemeka said. But then again, it's been an insightful conversation filled with a lot of perspectives, and I do hope that the government are watching this conversation to know that they needed feedback. I think they have feedback now. This is one among many other feedbacks that's going to come. I really wish that most of Nigerians across Nigeria have access to the internet so that they see more of the feedbacks. But then again, we continue to hope that those 4 persons in the room continue to, give them.
We don't know if it is 4 people in the room.
People in the room.
Metaphorically.
I mean, metaphorically.
Yeah,
exactly.
Mr. Osemeka, thank you so much for joining the program. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. We do hope to have you again to do more reviews on the app. Maybe when it is launched, we'll have you here again. So we dissect the application and also do the KPIs.
Already we missed the deadline. It was supposed to be launched in March, according to what the government said.
This is supposed to be an upgrade.
He said it's an implementation issue. I think we should just pick up when we have this conversation again.
It's an implementation issue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Osemeka. Well, there you have it. That's the discussion segment of Daybreak.